Yo, what's good, y'all, man? We got Moon Knight, episode 2 breakdown, ending, explain, and then, yeah, we got Marc, origin, and then we got Moon Knight powers. So, yeah, like it up, man. It's on my channel, and, yeah. Ain't gonna lie, episode 2 was good, though. I ain't gonna lie, episode 2 was good. It was a lot of shit, though. A lot of shit happened on episode 2, though. And it was way longer than episode 1, though. I ain't gonna lie, man. That bitch was 53 minutes, damn near an hour. But it was a good hour, though. I ain't gonna lie, it was a good hour, though. No cap. But yeah, trailer video, and yeah, let's get it.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Cosmic Wonder, where we talk all things Marvel and MCU. I'm your host, Warren Thompson, and we just watched Moon Knight, episode 2. Right away, before we get started, let me know what you thought about this episode in the comments.
Hey, what you thought?
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Cosmic Wonder, where we talk all things Marvel and MCU. I'm your host, Warren Thompson, and we just watched Moon Knight, episode 2. Right away, before we get started, let me know what you thought about this episode in the comments below. Did you think it was better? Did you like it more or not so much as the first episode? Rate it 1 out of 10 down below. Now,
I give it a 10. Let me know in the comment below. I give it a 10, though. Okay.
I'm a little sick and my voice is a little rough right now, so I apologize, but let's just dive right into this breakdown and talk about the things that you need to know about episode 2, because there's a lot of things that actually connect to the comics in this episode, including who Marc Spector actually is. So we'll dive into a little bit of his backstory, who Layla is, and what exactly is Arthur trying to do. Does he truly want to summon Amit to release her so she can judge people, or does he perhaps have an agenda of his own? I think he has a different agenda than he's stating. So let's dive into this week's Moon Knight episode breakdown. And of course, if you're new and you love Marvel, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the latest videos. Now, I actually love this opening scene because it plays off of some things that are talked about in the comics. At the end of last episode, Arthur had hunted Stephen down in the museum, and at night, when Stephen was getting off work, Stephen thought he was trying to get a stray dog out of the museum, but then Arthur gets on the intercom and tells him to give him the scarab. An Egyptian jackal is then summoned and goes after Stephen, in which he runs and hides into the bathroom, shuts the door, and the jackal
yeah, and then the camera, like, the whole time, like, he running and shit. The camera don't pick up, like, the song, you know what I'm saying, you know, they don't show the monster and shit. So he just run around in the museum, just running around, like, just aimlessly, just running, like, you know, like he crazy and shit. Which he not crazy, but they think he crazy because, you know, he just, you know, they don't see the monster and shit.
Through, and this is where Marc comes out in the reflection and says, "Give me control, I will save us." Stephen struggles with reality, saying that it's not real, Marc says it is, give me control. Stephen finally concedes. Moon Knight comes out for the first time, and he beats the crap out of the jackal. And this picks up immediately after that, with Stephen in bed, and we can hear the sounds of Moon Knight beating up the jackal. Stephen then wakes up and he starts running, in which the restraint catches him, he falls on the floor, and he starts to go, okay, maybe it was just a dream. Also, if you notice, there were no feet prints in the sand. So Marc's mind would have automatically thought, okay, I didn't get up last night, this must have been a dream, because there are no feet prints in the sand. But this is where Marc kind of starts to begin to break mentally, which is, you know, totally understandable. But he goes to the mirror, looks at himself, and says, "Are you there?" Talking to Marc, trying to see if it comes out, in which, of course, nothing happens, and he says, "I didn't think so." So here we really see Stephen start to struggle with what is real and what is in his mind, and what is dreams at night. Now, it seems like Stephen is kind of leaning towards the side that these are just dreams and in his head, but notice as he walks up the stairs to go into the museum, he turns back and he looks to see if anybody might be following him, any of Arthur's men. But notice this, when he walks into the museum, he is genuinely surprised to see maintenance in there. He takes a look at the repairman's toolbox, and then he looks into the museum, and he gives this look that is kind of like, was it real? Did that really happen? And he sees that there's damage done and a section is crossed off. And he's even actually surprised. He goes up to JB and he says, "It's proper mad, isn't it?" And he even asks what happened. Bruv says, "It looks like it was burst pipes, but it doesn't look like that to me."
Grammarly does more than catch errors. With Grammarly, you can find really good, no, perfect words that make your writing
And that's where Stephen realizes, oh my gosh, last night was real.
Yeah, then he realized, he like, oh, wait, this shit was real.
So Stephen says, I should check the security footage with you because I might have some...
He was so happy that, like, let them see what's going on and shit.
Information. Obviously, Steven expects to see the Egyptian Jackal and Moon Knight both on the security cameras, and he even tells JB, hey, what you're about to see is like Area 51, MI6 bonker stuff you're about to see. But I actually love this part because nothing shows up on the
slide, nothing show up. He was just running around like he cuckoo. But he not cuckoo though. But he running around though, just aimlessly. That's why I said shit was funny though, man. Shit was funny.
Camera. We cannot see the Egyptian Jackal, but Steven swears there was something chasing him. He says there was a big hound chasing him, and JB says, oh yeah, Hound of the Baskervilles, was it? Now this is just a tiny little Easter egg. Hound of the Baskervilles was one of the most famous stories ever written, and it's actually a Sherlock Holmes story. Sherlock Holmes and of course Dr. Watson are investigating murders that were caused by a huge hound. It doesn't really have any relevance to the story, but they threw it in there for a little Easter egg. Now, I really love this part because now Steven is actually thinking he might be going crazy. He tells JB to fast forward to the end, and we see him walking out. He is not in the Moon Knight clothes, but we see Mark, not Steven, but
Mark, yep. He started looking at the camera.
Looking into the camera. JB says, it's still you, but Steven looks at him and realizes that's not him, and he says, that's not me. So from here, the pressure on Steven's mind is really getting to him. He really cannot tell what is real and what's not.
Yeah,
and it really doesn't help that the next scene that we get is of him meeting with somebody at the museum who says that he's talked to a bunch of his colleagues and says that it's clear that he's been struggling lately. And basically says that he's kind of losing it. And he's recommending a group of doctors to him. And this is where Steven realizes, oh, okay, they think I'm crazy. But it's funny that Steven actually looks like he knows he might actually be crazy. The HR man says, you're not alone, and Steven says, yeah, that's part of the problem. The HR guy asks him if he has any company property on him, in which Mark pulls out a key, which we find out is to the storage locker, and the phone. Then we have a heartbreaking scene where he has to give up his name tag.
Yeah, I'm like, damn, folks. Yeah, he got fired. No cat. That's crazy though.
After working at the museum, he wanted to be a tour guide, but unfortunately, it didn't work out for him. And you just really root for Steven, but unfortunately, he's not having much luck right now. But then we go to Steven talking to his friend, the Golden Man. And here he's really trying to justify these things that have been happening to him, trying to say, I'm not crazy. I swear, I found these hidden things in my flat. So he decides that he's going to investigate them. And it's interesting that he says he's going to do it to prove to himself that he's not mad. So he finds out that the key is to Central London Storage.
And that gold motherfucker was moving too. He looked at him like, if y'all saw the episode, y'all saw the gold motherfucker moving, no cat.
He checked a bunch of them before finally arriving at the one where he has his storage, or where Mark has his storage. And the guy actually recognizes him and says, I know you, you're storage number 43. Now this could be referring to Moon Knight Volume 1, number 43, dubbed Multiple Maniacs, where he faces off against some doppelgangers of some heroes like Daredevil. Not really pertinent to the story, but Multiple Maniacs could be referring to the state of mind of Stephen Grant right now. He has inside of him Khonshu and Mark Spector. Now he takes him to the storage, and this is where he finds all of Mark's
all his stuff, man.
Stuff. The mercenary. He sees all of his stuff, his spare change of clothes, and he finds a duffel bag, and he goes up and he opens it, and what does he find? A gun, money in a bunch of different currencies, and a passport that says Mark Spector on it. This is where he learns the full name of Mark. He learns his last name is Spector, and he a big sigh, basically saying to himself, it's real. Mark is real. There's essentially somebody else living inside of me. And he also finds the scarab in there, which basically solidifies that everything that's been happening to him is indeed real. Now, Steven realizes that this looks like a compass, except it's not pointing north. And it's later on revealed by Arthur that it is indeed a compass, but it's pointing not north, but to Amit's grave. Now, here's where Mark shows up and actually reveals everything to Steven. And this is where he reveals that he is the avatar of Khonshu. He serves him as his fist of justice, and he makes it sound like his task is almost done. This plays a major part into the story later on. But something to notice is that Mark says we deliver Khonshu's justice to those who are hurt. This is a really big part that we're about to get to in a later scene. Now from here, Steven kind of doesn't buy the whole Khonshu God of the Moon thing. He says it's the stupidest thing he's ever heard, and he starts to have a panic attack. And here we find that Mark can only communicate with Steven through reflections. We see this when he is communicating.
I noticed that too. Only through mirrors or just like you said, reflections. That's only it though. He can't, Other else, you can't do.
Hitting with him through the reflection of the gun. Marc says he made a deal with Khonshu, and the deal's almost done. He's about to finish it, and he'll never hear from him again, but he needs to let him finish it and give him the body. But this is where Steven kind of goes, okay, I'm crazy, so I'm gonna turn myself in, and hopefully some therapists are gonna give me some pills that make everything go away and make me alright. However, as he tries to run, he runs into Khonshu.
Yep.
And we have a really cool scene here that is very much like a horror film scene. Something that we've really never seen before from Marvel, and it's a really nice change. Now, eventually he runs into Khonshu, and Khonshu says, give it back, you fool. Now, what's interesting to note here is that Khonshu can't actually physically keep him from going anywhere. And this is pointed out in a later scene where Khonshu makes the wind blow really, really hard, and Arthur says, don't worry, that's all he can do. Because remember, he is the avatar for Khonshu. Khonshu isn't actually physically there in that realm.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed that too. You know what I'm saying? That's why he can move different places type shit, man.
On
I
Earth.
noticed
And
that.
We find out a little bit more about this in a later scene. But Steven runs out absolutely petrified, and eventually he runs into the street where we meet Layla. Now she of course thinks it's Marc, and she says, is Steven the latest?
And then later, she keeps saying it's Marc, and you trying to tell her, but you know what I'm saying, she don't know yet. I think later episode she gonna know, or probably next episode. But right now she don't know. She still, I mean, she just don't want to know pretty much.
In your fake identities that you've come up with. Clearly, Marc, as a mercenary, has used fake identities before. Steven gets on the back of her moped, and we find out that Layla is actually his wife.
Yeah, that was a surprise. I'm like, hold on, you married that motherfucker? Goddamn. Shit.
Now, of course, it's Marc's wife and not Steven's wife, and this is important to note because, again, like I've said, Marc is the main person. Marc is the original host of the body. Steven is a personality that has been made up and kind of taken on a mind of its own. So the real life of this body belongs to Marc. Now, as Layla expresses her concerns for Marc over the past couple of months, she does mention that she knows he has the suit and thought that he would be okay because he has the suit. Clearly showing that they have, in fact, been through a lot together. Now, of course, Steven is confused and he keeps asking her questions like, did you say you're my wife? Are we married? But Layla thinks that it's just an act that he's putting on because people are following them. Layla gets tired of it, but Steven says, hey, if you take me back to my flat, I'll tell you everything. So we get to the apartment and we notice that Layla has never been there before. She walks in, she's very...
Yeah, she was like, what, you got a girl in your bedroom or something? You know what I mean? Like, so the whole time, Marc never walk into the room and shit. He probably, you know, invited to some other room and shit. So, yeah. That was kind of crazy though.
Curious about everything, she walks right up to the fish tank to look at the fish, and it looks like Steven walks up on the other side. But then we quickly realize that this is actually Marc in the reflection of the fish tank, and he says that she shouldn't be there. Now Steven says out loud, I just want my life back, because he's talking to Marc. Layla obviously responds, in which Steven says, oh, I wasn't talking to you, I was talking to myself, sort of. Now this can contribute to Layla thinking that Steven or Marc is actually mentally unstable, because this kind of happens in the comics where they don't actually know if Khonshu is real or not. Now, Layla is still Steven's wife, and she thinks that he might be living with somebody else, in which he replies, oh no, this is my mom's flat. Now, we've heard about Steven's mom a lot, but we don't actually know who she is yet. But Layla...
Yeah, they said something about mom, but we don't know how she, you know, like we don't know how she is or anything. I don't know how she died. Well, somebody said she died, but I don't know. You know what I mean? We don't know. So we just, you know, key hearing the mind part type.
Says, oh, so you two are talking again, which really confuses Steven. But this makes you wonder, who exactly is Steven's mom? Because again, Marc is the actual...
That's what I'm saying. I don't know who.
Rightful holder of the body. So it would actually be Marc's mom. So who exactly is Steven talking to when he calls his mom? Is he talking to Marc's mother and she realizes that, hey, my son might be a little crazy here, so I'll talk to Steven, this other personality, but I won't actually talk to Marc? I'm sure we'll find that out in a later episode, but if you have any guesses, let me know in the comments. Now Layla starts going through some of Marc's stuff. We can see some book titles. One is The Man in the Ice. Now this is an actual book that talks about the discovery of a 5,000-year-old body reveals the secret of the Stone Age, but when I think of The Man in the Ice in the MCU, I think of Steve Rogers, but I doubt it's about Captain America. Below that, we see a book titled The Intervention, which kind of just happened to Steven with the person at the museum telling him that, hey, we're going to give you some doctors to get you some help. Then Layla picks up a book by Marceline de Bar-Van-Mo, and this is interesting because we kind of see the split of Marc's personality here. Layla explains that that's her favorite poet, and it's Steven's as well. Now Marc would obviously know this, and it seems like the part that did know this split off into Steven, and he subconsciously knew that poet and it became his favorite poet. So we do kind of see parts of Marc breaking off into Steven's personality. We see the same thing happen when Layla says, so you're learning hieroglyphics as well. Again, Steven could have subconsciously went to learn hieroglyphics because Marc knew that Layla liked hieroglyphics. Now Layla doesn't really buy any of this, and she thinks it's just Marc messing with her. And she pulls out divorce papers and says, this is what you wanted. However, Steven won't sign them because, as we can tell here, he's kind of into her. Which obviously makes sense because Marc married her, so he's gonna like her a little bit at least. But at this point, Steven has kind of accepted what is happening to him, and he starts to tell Layla everything because he thinks that she's the only person that might be able to help him. And he's about to show her the scarab, but Marc mentions from the reflection that if he shows her what's in the bag and tells her everything, he's gonna get her killed, and this automatically makes Steven stop. However, Layla budges her way in and finds the scarab. She's obviously pissed, but Steven explains, it's not me, I'm not Marc, take the scarab. Now Layla actually tells us what this is. She says it's the scarab pointing to Ament's Ushabti. Now, in ancient Egypt, an Ushabti was placed in the tomb among the grave of the gods. So essentially, the scarab points to the grave or tomb of Amet. And we know why they were looking for the scarab. Amet has been judging people before death via Arthur, and they want to resurrect her. Now, Layla does say you don't know why we've been looking for this, and we don't know that full story yet, but we do know that Arthur does want to resurrect Amet. Now, shortly after, two cops come to the door, and if you're watching this, you've already seen the episode or don't care about spoilers, and we know that these two cops aren't actually cops. They're working.
Yeah, I found that out too, because first I thought it was cops. The whole time it was his army. Fake like they cops and shit, because he came and he saw the same girl from the episode 1. He was like, hold on. And then she got the sign on his arm, on the, on the hands and, palms and shit. And I was like, how long? They got like cops too? Man, he got everything, man. That Arthur motherfucker got everything. They could be fake cops. They could be fake doctors. You feel me? Like, they could be fake anything type shit. Nah, that's crazy.
So they make it seem like they're cops. They intimidate and they scare Steven. They put him in handcuffs and take him away. And in this car ride, we learn the actual origin story of Marc Spector from the comics. And the female cop kind of partly explains how Marc Spector became Moon Knight. She runs a report and says that Marc Spector...
basically tell, if people didn't know Marc, they basically tell you.
There was part of a team of mercenaries that hit a dig site in Egypt. And on the screen, you can see a bunch of dead bodies covered up. Then she says, here's what they did to the archaeologists. They zip-tied them up and shot them in the back of the head execution style. Now, of course, Steven says, no, that wasn't me because it was actually Marc. However, it wasn't actually Marc. Now they arrive at the location, which is not a police station, which confuses Marc, and he says, I thought we were going to the police station. But then the man adjusts the mirror, and we see the scale of Amet on his arm, and he says, why would you think that? Now from here, Steven asks for help from a lady outside, but he quickly realizes that she also has the scale on her arm and that he's pretty much in a city of the cult that follows Arthur and Amet. But what's interesting here is that you can actually physically see Marc try to take over Steven's body. Steven all of a sudden looks like he's in pain, it looks like he's struggling, and then we see a reflection of Marc and it does look like he's trying to take over the body. However, Steven is resilient and he manages to keep control. Now from here, Steven says, I saw what you did to those people, I'm never giving you control again. But Marc says it's not what you think. And this is where the comic origin comes in. Moon Knight's origin is basically what has been said already. Marc Spector was a mercenary and he went on a job in Egypt. Now from here, he went to an archaeologist's dig site with another mercenary called Bushman. At the dig site, Bushman would end up killing the archaeologist, specifically Dr. Alrun, and he kills the archaeologist right in front of his daughter, Marlene, who I actually believe they switched to Layla for the Moon Knight series. But after Bushman ruthlessly killed the archaeologist, Marc actually stood up to him and tried to fight him. However, he lost. And he was beaten pretty much to death. In fact, he does die, but but before he dies, he's taken in front of a statue of Khonshu. There he dies, but is quickly resurrected. He's resurrected by Khonshu, and he's perfectly healed. But it came with a price. He now has to be Khonshu's fist of justice. And this is what Marc was talking to Steven about inside of the storage locker. He's the avatar of Khonshu. He's his fist of justice. He judges who hurt innocent people. Now, in the comics, Marc gets up, but before he leaves, he takes robes off of the statue of Khonshu, which go on to become the Moon Knight suit, and he goes back with Marlene, who goes on to become the love of his life, which is why I believe Layla is simply Marlene from the comics, and he goes back with his best friend Frenchie as well, who we have seen mentioned in this series in the first episode. When Steven found Marc's phone and went through the missed calls, there was a missed call from somebody called Duchamp, and Duchamp is short for Jean-Paul Frenchie Duchamp, who is basically his #1 man, pretty much Alfred to Batman, Frenchie to Moon Knight. And keep in mind the robes, because we're going to come back to that in just a bit. Now, instead of the character Bushman, I'm pretty sure they just replaced him with Arthur here. Arthur was never really a big Moon Knight character, so they're basically doing what they want with the story here. But the big question is, did Arthur kill Layla's father? We don't find out this episode, but I'm sure more details are going to come about this later on. Now, while Steven was in the car, Arthur really ended up tricking him. He turned on the microphone so he could hear what he's saying, and he now realizes that Steven does indeed have more than one person in him. He even goes on to say, "No wonder your scales don't balance," from the first episode when he actually judged him. The scales didn't balance, and he said, "You have chaos in you." But he says your scales don't balance because he has a lot of different people inside of him. And he even says, "Do you think Khonshu chose you because your mind would be so easy to break, or because it was broken already?" And in the comics, this is actually one of the reasons that Khonshu did choose Marc Spector. But Steven says, "I'm not broken." Now Khonshu appears and he says, "Steven, kill him." And what's really interesting is that Arthur actually realizes that Khonshu is there, and he...
That's what I was saying. Arthur know he's there. Don't know how. But he know he's there though. That's what gets me. I'm like, damn. Okay.
Seems to know what he's saying, but then the wind blows super hard and Arthur says that's all he can do without your help. So again, referring to what I said before, Khonshu actually can't hurt anybody physically. That's why he has
300 for that and 2,000 for this. Way too expensive. But today I'm going to show you guys how to get all this stuff for a lot cheaper.
An avatar, because Khonshu isn't actually physically in our realm. Now, Arthur, now realizing that Steven and Marc are indeed two separate people, he tries to kind of reason with Steven. He takes him inside, and we actually hear the same music that we heard in the very beginning of the opening scene of the first episode of Moon Knight. That was of Arthur crushing up the glass and putting it inside of his slippers. As they go in, we can actually tell that they are indeed in the same place, so this is sort of Arthur's base camp here. Now, from here, we sort of have a battle of the gods, which is pretty interesting here. Arthur explains that Ammit judges people before they can actually commit bad things, before they actually do evil. But Khonshu explains that Khonshu himself is real justice because he only punishes people who have actually done bad things. So this is sort of the battle of the gods, the battle of different beliefs. The opinion that Khonshu judges people too late, and Ammit is casting judgment now, in advance, and this is why they plan to resurrect her. So she can judge the entire earth, and that's why they need the scarab, so they can find Ammit's tomb. We also find out that Arthur was a avatar for Khonshu before, and clearly the two of them didn't really agree with each other, since now he is the avatar for Ammit. And you have to wonder, did Arthur make a deal with Ammit to stop becoming Khonshu's avatar? Because Marc seems to be pretty locked in being the avatar of Khonshu. It seems like something he can't get out of. So you have to wonder, how did Arthur get out of being Khonshu's avatar? I think that he might have made a deal with Ammit, but I also think that his motives aren't exactly what they seem. But here we find out that there are some flaws in Ammit's plans. Steven starts asking questions like, well, what about babies? Would you kill a baby if 50, 60, 70 years from now he's going to do something bad? And Arthur replies, basically, yes. And this is where you see how delusional the cult is. They actually make rational justifications for doing horrible things like killing children.
They're crazy. That's like I said, they crazy in Tulum. No cap. No cap.
But Arthur says sometimes the cure is a little taste of the disease. The difference between medicine and poison sometimes is only dosage. But this is where Steven kind of draws the line. He's like, I'm not telling you anything about the scarab because you're gonna kill some babies. And this is where Arthur kind of has drawn his line as well. And here is where we are introduced to Ammit's cane or staff. Arthur explains that it's Ammit's gift to her first avatar. Now, we don't know if Arthur is her first avatar and she gave it to him, or if she had other avatars before and he simply inherited the staff or cane when he eventually became her avatar. But he does explain that it contains a tiny sliver of her power. And notice how it kind of glows purple. We'll get to this in just a bit. But Layla shows up with the scarab. And this actually kind of pisses Khonshu off, and he states, there's no deal in this, Marc, you better fix this. And Khonshu has promised Marc that this is going to be his last mission as Khonshu's avatar, then he'll be set free. Now again, very inconveniently, Layla does not believe Marc. She thinks Marc is messing with her and that Steven does not exist, so she tells him, summon the suit. She shows up with a very cocky attitude because she believes that Marc could simply summon the Moon Knight suit and everything will be okay. Now Steven is incredibly confused, so Layla just simply says, alright fine, keep the scarab safe, and the two of them run, and Arthur has had enough and we see the staff's power. Now this really reminds me of the Power Stone. It glows purple like the Power Stone, and even when he puts the staff on the ground, it really looks like Esson the Searcher in Guardians of the Galaxy.
True.
Putting the staff that held the Power Stone on the planet, which eventually caused the planet to explode. Now I don't think this is the Power Stone or it's drawing power from the Power Stone, because of course the Infinity Stones from our universe were destroyed. But it sure does seem like cosmic power, so perhaps the source of the power might have come from the same place. After all, a cosmic Egyptian god created the staff, so the staff, although it does have some magic to it as Arthur summons an Egyptian jackal, it may have massive power like the Infinity Stone. It clearly has magic from another realm, as the jackal is summoned and Layla can't see it, just like the footage from the cameras at the museum didn't show the jackal either. And this is really kind of interesting here because again you go back to the, is Steven actually crazy? Is this actually real? Nobody can see it but him. Now Layla and Steven manage to escape to a room and they shut the door, and clearly you can tell that something is trying to break down the door. And
That's that monster.
Steven kind of gets overwhelmed here. Marc is yelling at him through reflection, trying to break down the door. And Steven kind of gets overwhelmed here. Marc is yelling at him through reflection, saying, let me in, give me the body. Layla is sitting there telling him, your name is Marc, you can do this, you need to fight. And Steven kind of just shuts down. But then Layla actually switches from calling him Marc to calling him Steven, saying, Steven, you can do this. But again, it's all kind of too much, and he says, I'm sorry, I can't. Then the Egyptian jackal busts through the door, which Steven can see, but Layla can't. Again, we wonder if it's actually real, but then it tackles Steven outside of the window and he's falling down, about to hit the ground, where we hear Khonshu yell, summon the suit, in which Steven just kind of yells suit because he doesn't know how it works. Now eventually when he hits the ground, we do see that he has indeed summoned the Moon Knight suit. However, it is
somehow he know what I'm saying, he just summoned that motherfucker.
It's very different than the typical Moon Knight suit. It is actually the Mr. Knight suit. Now Steven summoned the suit like this because when he hears suit, this is what he is thinking of in his mind, a dress suit. Marc says, what the hell are you wearing? You're supposed to summon the ceremonial armor from Khonshu's temple. This is the robes or armor that he takes in the comics from the tomb before he leaves, right after he was brought back to life by Khonshu. Now Marc asks him if he still has the scarab, in which when he's looking for the scarab, he pulls out two poles. And these are what I believe to be his truncheon, which is from the comics. His truncheon has multiple purposes in the comics, and it's basically a multi-purpose weapon. It can be used as a bow staff, a grappling hook, a baton, and a cane. So very useful. Now as he pulls these out, he gets attacked by the jackal. And the jackal basically starts throwing him around, and here's the very important part. We can see here that Steven isn't actually crazy. We can see that Layla can see something is fighting him and sees him getting picked up by something invisible. And then she herself actually gets hit by the jackal. Why can't she see it though? No one can likely see it unless they've been given some sort of gift by the gods. Arthur was giving this sort of gift from Ammit, and Steven, through Marc, has it from Khonshu. Now, after Steven gets roughed up a little bit by the jackal, and so does Layla, Steven actually gets some courage. Marc says, give me control, Steven, you can't handle this, in which Steven replies, I think I can. And he gets a little bit of confidence. And he starts hyping himself, starts talking to the jackal. He says float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, which is what Muhammad Ali said, the world heavyweight boxing champion. And Steven has the confidence, and the jackal even jumps at him, and Steven stands his ground and manages to punch the jackal in the face with a huge blow. Now unfortunately Steven gets a little cocky here, and the jackal continues to rough him up. However, an incoming car is coming, and Steven manages to throw the jackal into the car right before it hits them. And you can see that the car is super messed up from hitting the jackal, further confirming the jackal is real, but people just can't see it. see it. Now from here, Mark talks to Steven again, of course through a reflection, and he actually gives him a little bit of praise. He tells him that was a hell of a punch, but Mark tells Steven that he needs to look around. People could get hurt if he doesn't give him the body. And good old Steven doesn't want to risk anyone getting hurt, so he gives control to Mark. And now we see the true Moon Knight come out in the ceremonial armor. And we see him take his crescents off of his chest, which in the comics are actually made out of adamantium, which in the comics is also what Wolverine's claws are made out of. And if you notice here, Moon Knight can't fly or jump really high, and he pretty much can't do anything that's super. We see him climb up the wall, not jump up it or fly, but climb like a normal human. He kind of just gets super strength, and the suit provides him with increased durability and it heals him, but besides that he doesn't have a lot of massive powers. But we see him lead the jackal away, jumping from the rooftops. We see the classic Moon Knight jump in front of the crescent moon, and his powers once upon a time in the comics did depend on the moon cycle, but they ended up changing that. So who knows if that'll be the case in the MCU. Now Mark Spector as Moon Knight defeats the jackal in a pretty epic way, impaling it, then catching his crescent in an epic way after, but unfortunately he loses the scarab. Now, a random citizen finds the scarab, in which Arthur goes up to him and says, "I'm sorry, that belongs to me. I can offer you food and clothing, but I'm afraid I can't offer you this." Now, here's something really interesting that happens. We see Arthur take the hand of this citizen, and he kills him, but it doesn't look like he used the scales to judge him, which is kind of fishy. Does Arthur want to release Amit for another reason that he's preaching? Because it really doesn't seem like he judged this person.
Nah, he just killed him. I'm telling y'all, folks, Arthur is up to something. No cap. He up to something, man.
And for Amit, right here, it seems like he just kind of murdered him. Perhaps he wants Amit's powers for himself, and has figured out a way to take them after he resurrects him.
I think he want that thing.
Now we go back to Mark, who is out of the Moon Knight armor now, and we see that Steven is now on the outside. And from here we find out some pretty crucial information. Steven says that he can barely move in the reflections, and he tries to take the body back from Mark after Mark refuses to give it to him, and is very unsuccessful even though he tries very hard. Mark explains that they've always managed to keep a wall between them, but something's changed. The one who was in control of the body at the time has become stronger, and most of the time it will take all of the person's willpower to be a fly in the wall. So as we can see here, it's actually very hard for the person who doesn't have control of the body to actually be in the picture. And here Steven realizes that the reason his life is so screwed up, the reason that he can't get a date, he can't keep a job, he can't keep a goldfish alive, is because Mark has been taking over.
Yeah, it's true though, because of Mark.
His body. Now, from here, Mark goes on to kind of say, we wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for Khonshu, which again goes back to the comics where Khonshu brought Mark back to life after he died. And Mark explains that he has to repay a debt to Khonshu, and after he repays that, he's done. He'll be gone forever. Steven will never see Mark again, which is very interesting because, again, Mark is the one who has the body. He is the original
he's the main
person.
character.
Unless some.
That's why I was like, why you say that? I thought Mark was the main. You feel me? So, but I don't know
how they managed to change all that in the MCU. Here we also learn something that is very important. The reason Mark wants to divorce Layla and stay away from her is because Khonshu wants her as his next avatar. When Mark is done.
Oh yeah, I saw that shit, but I'm like, damn. So basically, she gonna have personality too, or some shit.
When he's repaid his debt, he's going to choose her, and he doesn't want that to happen, so that's why he's distancing himself from her. And here we see Mark and Steven go at it. Steven doesn't believe anything that Mark says, and Mark just wants Steven to shut up. And eventually, Mark destroys the mirror of which Steven's reflection is in, and he goes away. But as Steven goes away, Khonshu appears. Now, Khonshu confirms more of the origin. He says that when I found you, you were nothing but a corpse.
Yeah, basically dead type shit.
And your body actually belongs to me because I brought you back to life. Now, Khonshu says that he'll protect Mark with everything he has because he's worth protecting. Although, we're not sure how genuine Khonshu actually is because he's trying to go back on the deal that him and Mark made, telling them that they need each other. And he says that you're probably not going to like my next candidate if we should part because we know it's going to be Layla. Then the final scene ends with Mark in Egypt, and we see Steven looking through the reflection in a mirror, looking pretty miserable. But Steven is in Egypt now, and he's going to try to get to Amit's tomb before Arthur does, so they can stop him. And that is episode 2. Again, be sure to let me know all your thoughts.
Good as episode though, no cap.
And theories about episode 2 in the comments down below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss out on all of the latest Marvel news. For live updates, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.
No, yeah, but good as episode 2, y'all, man. I give it a 10, y'all. But hey, like it up. It's on my channel, y'all, man. That was the breakdown, the end of this plane, man. Say like it up, sub, and yeah, peace.